Hello, all, and welcome to another episode of Market Pulse presented by Smart Touch Interactive. I'm your host, Aaron Fichera, and today I have a special guest, Natalie Roberts, the principal of Social Strategies. Natalie, welcome.
Good to be here, and thank you.
Well, we got an interesting show today because not only are we talking about kind of what's on the hot button of the buyer side, being this debate between affordability and attainability, but we'll also be talking about manufactured homes. And as we're getting to the season, big things come in small packages. So really diving into your expertise when it comes to manufactured home, the trends that you're seeing. I know personally, I get I get bombarded with new manufactured home developments. So as well as seeing new interesting designs, especially you go on social media, TikTok, Instagram. I mean, you look at some of these and you wouldn't know any difference of it being part of a mansion. So, but
Exactly.
I digress. We're definitely going to dive into that. So, Natalie, for our audience that's listening, could you give us a little brief overview of your journey in the single family and manufactured home building industry?
Absolutely. It's my honor. Oh, we would have to start about 20 years ago, so I'll make it short and sweet. I moved to Texas, like I said, about 20 years ago. And there was a desire just for the Austin eclectic vibe. And not an unknowing at the time that I would be going into real estate. So I had spent the better part of my career working in government marketing with a few senators. And how I moved into real estate was, let me go out and shop and see for my home. And then as I witnessed this, I went, this is an industry I know nothing about and I have a desire to learn. So I jumped on board with Streetman Homes. They've since sold. And true to a unique path that I typically take, I was offered the head of marketing position. And with gratitude said, I regretfully declined because I first have to go learn how to build a home, which I did. I spent 3 months in the field with construction. And then I said, that's great. Now I need to learn how to sell a home. So I spent 3 months selling new homes. And then I went over into purchasing and operations. And once I completed that cycle, it was then time to take a position in real estate marketing, specifically with new home construction. Yeah, kind of an
That's
path in, Aaron.
I mean, it sounds like you're leaving no stone unturned. And actually, you did leave out one hat that you wear. And I do want to give you a congratulations that recently you had a featured home design by IBS, if that's correct.
Yes, absolutely. It was exciting. So
Congratulations.
thank
I mean,
you.
I mean, again, that's another hat. How, first of all, how does it feel to be recognized for kind of an innovative design? And then, you know, what's unique about this design? How did it all come together?
Yeah, great question. To the backstory on this is if we go back to when COVID hit, that's the terminology I use for that. It builds a story up for us and for the listener, I think, Aaron. Imagine, we're all somewhere doing something. So I was in Florida and could not get home to Texas for about 30 days. Upon arriving back home, I lost 100% of my developer and home builder clients. So I was literally at ground zero. They were in a panic mode.
Mhm.
Obviously, none of us understood where we were going, how we were going to be able to build homes. And so it was that moment. And I went, okay, let's dig in. Let's really dive deep into the research and understand this market, where this market is going, and what this market needs. So in that research, I was connected with a company called Skyline Champion, and they are the largest manufactured home builder in North America. And then if we kind of go down the chart, they're also heavy into the modular and tiny home ADU industry. And
It,
so,
now,
yeah.
and this is always, and I don't mean to cut you off. How do you determine the difference between a manufactured home and a modular home and a tiny home? How do you kind of differentiate the criteria? Is it just based on the size, the plumbing?
No,
What's the
great
factor?
one. So the first easy, the low hanging fruit on that, tiny homes, typically, I'll use this as an example, Village Farm in Austin. I launched that
Yep.
community, right?
Yeah.
So we would buy from a supplier in Kentucky, and those homes had to be transported via the highways and the road systems.
Mhm.
So they had to stay under 396 square feet, and they were obviously transported, set on foundations. And then here was a fun little fact I don't think many people know. When you go to close on your home, your tiny home, you actually close at the DMV. You do not close at title. So it's a
Really?
much different process. Now, it might have changed in the last year or so, but to the best of my knowledge, and when I launched the project, yeah, the buyers would close at the DMV.
Nothing beats going to the DMV, I guess.
To close on your new home,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of our easy, tiny homes. Typically it's by size, and depending, there's different models. Aaron, for Skyline Champion,
Mhm.
they're manufacturing and delivering out to developer and builder clients throughout North America. And when we move into manufactured housing, there's actually MH housing and MH Advantage housing. The difference between the two is the options, the way the home is built, the standards that the home is built to.
Mhm.
So, as an example, an MH Advantage home actually can sustain hurricane force winds with a greater resistance than a single family home can withstand. So they're
Really?
built to a higher specification when it comes to hurricane force winds or winds than an actual traditional stick built home.
Okay. I mean, to kind of stay, and this gets into really our overarching topic, you know, changing of the environment, changing of trends. And over the last decade, we've seen a noticeable surge of manufactured homes. So, you know, what do you think spurs this greater acceptance, this change in lifestyle or view of, you know,
Yeah.
housing? What are
Well,
some factors?
yeah, and when we look at it, just to kind of cap off modular
Mhm.
of the three tends to be your most highest priced. The
Okay.
specifications on a modular home are different from a manufactured. And so that all goes down to the particular project, the builder, what design, and then plays into your question, what is that demographic? What will the market bear? And do we have a product offering that's going to capture each piece of the market? So maybe a little bit more of a high end, but our high end still isn't standing, it's still below traditional home building. And then do we have an MH advantage? And that is, I want to give an average here, about 350 is
Hmm.
to 400 is the price point you're looking in. Again, that's what per market. Um, and then your tiny home, just to break down, I didn't anticipate going into this, but one of the most fascinating research points when launching Village Farm, we did all the studies, right? Spent all the money, had the focus groups, and we were absolutely convinced that everyone buying tiny homes in Austin, Texas was going to be a semi-retiree, and they were going, they wanted that kind of carefree, condensed lifestyle, less clutter. No, that wasn't. The buyers were predominantly female, single,
Really
and or a single parent. And millennials made up the second largest percentage of buyers.
interesting. I was about to say I figured it was going to be millennials and myself because I've looked at tiny homes and
Right.
alternative lifestyle and living arrangements, but why females or why? I mean, I know as in this focus groups they give any indication of,
Mhm.
is it just
It
a
did. Yeah.
security? Is it around just is that
I
I got
love it.
there we
Sounds
go.
good. Nice job, Aaron. So security, right? When we were designing and in the ideation period for the community, it was, how do we provide a one-stop, like take a master plan concept, bring that in? And what was born out of that and through the focus groups was we comboed a Texas's only non-GMO all organic farm is the hub of the community. You have
Okay.
an amphitheater, you have resort style amenities, walking trails, but then you're tied in additionally with RVs and manufactured housing. And so what happened was, as we all know in the home building industry, what is our number one lead referral source, or should it be? Should be referrals.
Yeah.
So you captured the security, right? We had home buyers coming in, walking the community going, are you kidding me? My kids can go out and they can do the gardening co-op program where I get fresh veggies. I have neighbors around me from different backgrounds. I'm in a safe and secure environment. And that was taking what is our traditional master plan community where we may not know our neighbors, and it may be so big that we just feel like a small fish in a big pond, and we condensed it. And it almost every tiny home has a front porch in that neighborhood. And the why behind that was, when we force people to sit outside, what are we going to do? We're going to communicate. We're going to become a community. We're going to start talking to our neighbors. So all that planning led to that end result of security, convenience, and location.
No, it
Yeah.
makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense. And kind of,
Psychology.
I mean, to kind of stay in the same realm of trends, you talked a little bit about some of your projects that you've had across North America. Have you noticed any regional differences when it comes to demand or design preferences for manufactured homes? I would assume, maybe MH Advance for that to be able to withstand hurricane winds. You probably want to have that around Oklahoma, Florida, maybe on the plains where there's a lot of wind, probably not as necessary if it's in a wooded area like Tennessee. I mean, are you seeing these trends, or are there any regional differences that you could point to?
It's truly regional, to be honest. So what we're seeing as far as trends and patterns across North America, if you look at the Northeast, has a higher pace of sales for ADUs than Texas does. So the Northeast and the East Coast, ironically, order, build, place more tiny homes and ADUs than our southern states, which is fascinating because one would think, well, why would I do that? It's freezing. Am I going to get, am I going to be warm? Yes. The answer is yes, absolutely. Here's where the caveat comes: as you look at that female buyer in Austin, Texas, or that millennial, right? As soon as that project started taking off, the light bulb lit our team, and we went, wait a second, if I'm a millennial and I have discretionary income because I may have gotten out of college, lived with my parents, I'm a tech worker making above 100K a year, I also have a lifestyle. So what happened was we ended up taking the Austin model and choosing locations that offer a lifestyle. So now there is a village farm in Tahoe. I can be in Austin and I can spend $89,000 on a home, but then I can have a second home in Tahoe for the winter if I want to go skiing and hang out, or maybe I want one up in the Pacific Northwest because I want to hang out in Oregon on the summers and have a cool summer. So that's kind of when you see those migration patterns or trends. Texas is definitely ramped up the tiny home ADU component, but the Northeast and the Pacific Northwest typically are going to be a higher percentage in that category. And then California, as an example, I had a project out there, all manufactured housing, on foundations with garages. You would not know driving by that was a manufactured home, simply because the home's sitting on a foundation. It's in a master plan community. It has an attached garage. There are no seams in the walls. It's not your grandmother's trailer. And so what we did when designing that was we had to reposition somebody's perception, right? And that kind of goes to, I think, something we'll talk about soon, which is affordability and attainability.
Yeah. Well, and before we kind of get into that larger conversation, I know dealing with kind of manufactured homes, or there's you're getting over a perception from the public. Is there any local ordinances or government intervention that there needs to be an education around? Is there anything that's kind of um, hurdles that you're seeing in the manufactured modular home industry, or things that have changed in the last recent years that have allowed for larger accessibility?
Yeah, yeah, great one too, Aaron. So 2020, we spent about 2 years sitting and meeting with city councils in California, Colorado, and Florida, and Texas. I apologize. So I'll give as a real life example, Johnson City, Texas.
Yeah,
Yeah, presented to city council, and it was the exact thing we kind of positioned for coming in, which was, we don't want a trailer park here.
yeah,
How is this going to lend to the value of property for the existing neighbors? And are we going to be diminishing their resale, right, value?
hmm,
And coming with renderings, coming with hard numbers, coming with consumer demand, and then backing into that, the understanding that I believe a study came out in September, Aaron, and according the research group is called Adam. So in the median home price in 2022 in 575 cities polled, 99% of home prices in those cities specifically go beyond the reach of the average buyer's income, which is $71,000.
yeah.
So
It's
so the short answer is absolutely getting through a misconception, both on municipality, city council, government. Ben Carson has been a huge advocate in this, beginning many years ago, and a champion of Skyline Champion, kind of pushing that forward, that we can solve this attainability crisis, and we can do it through a product that is positioned to stand next to a single family home builder in a time frame that delivers quickly. They can be built in 1 week, they're delivered in 2 weeks, they're set and ready to close in 45 days.
it's I mean, yeah, it gets into kind of the larger discussion, because I mean, when you map it out like that, it seems like, okay, that's attainable.
Right.
Not only on the price, location, having multiple versus just one stationary.
Mhm.
So, for those that are listening, you're I, we should be no stranger. If you open up LinkedIn, if you read any publication, if you go to any of our industry conferences or shows, the buzz is affordable housing versus attainable housing. That seems to be the buzz, or the debate going into 2024. And for those that are listening, how do you divide a distinction between the two, according to
Right.
Natalie? I know we could spend a whole another hour plus talking about what does that mean, but to Natalie, what does affordability and what does attainability mean?
Right. I think the best way to bring it in, and the according to Natalie is really the according to the average US American citizen.
That's what I want.
Um, and so it's, when we hear the word affordable housing, it goes back kind of to a previous comment about human psychology. When
Mhm.
I think of affordable housing, when polled, the first thing that comes up for the average American citizen is Section 8 housing.
Yeah, the projects.
Right. And in that, and even through and there's absolutely Section 8 housing is amazing, and it lifts people
Hmm.
into a space that, maybe they once didn't believe they could.
Yes.
For this case, it's okay, how do we separate? So I'm going to kind of loop this through, Aaron. So Johnson City, even with the data points that we just discussed, the project still didn't get approved. They denied the project. And so what that told us was, great, we have work to do. We have to change the narrative on manufactured housing, on affordable housing. And so when we look at affordable, there's already a connotation and there's already a perception associated with it. So if we're going to change public perception of manufactured housing to traditional home built, or rather traditional home building,
Hmm.
what we have to do is change it all. And so if 99% of households can't afford to buy a home at today's average price, that's not attainable. I can't reach for that goal. And so it really, truly attainable housing means we're hitting a market under 350,000 that accommodates an average income earner at $71,000 a year.
So we're talking about the late 80s and early 90s.
Correct. You just nailed it. All right. Yeah, we're trying to speed up
Yeah,
the
yeah.
words we're using. It's so true. And and that goes to, if we go back to city councils, municipalities, and consumers, and how we're changing MH housing and affordable to attainable. What was born of that, we're all sitting there and we said, great, what do we have to do? The only option we have is to build a proof of concept. So we identified a parcel of land out in Lockhart, Texas. We designed the product. The show home was taken to IVS. So that was our first exposure. And Aaron, you might get me on this one. I believe the average number of attendees for the International Builder Show is about 75,000 people.
I think it's around that time. I just know when we went, it was overwhelming. So I bet being on stage and getting that award for the design, you're probably deer in the headlights looking on the sea of people.
I always look out and I just see no one. You just keep going. But when we look at that, 75,000 pairs of eyes, and it's actually global because it is the International Builder Show. So our first point of entry is to get the builder, get the developer, get the Mike Kohlers to come on board and go, I want to be a part of that. So if we show you and we put a physical product out there, we begin to churn, the wheels start churning for our industry.
Yeah. Well, it does sound like we're in an education phase. The people that have it out there, like yourself, and those that are researching, those are the pioneers. But then there's always the settlers. So I think we're in that gap of educating. Because I can tell you, if you're familiar, and those that are listening, there's a wonderful. I don't know if they would be classified as a manufacturer, and I think they would be a manufactured homes icon that does the 3D printing homes. They have great models being implemented up at Wolf Ranch, up in Georgetown. So even with established communities like Hillwood, there seems to be a change. There seems to be a greater acceptance of this new class of housing.
Yeah, and even encouraged. The irony in your comment too, Aaron, is 30 minutes before we were face to face, I was just on the phone with a previous executive from Icon, and he has started his own company that he's launching in Round Rock, Texas, and it's a spinoff on tiny homes and this is all new info to me, but on tiny homes and ADUs. And if I look at my notes real quick, I believe the average cost per unit that they're looking at right now is $40,000.
Wow. And this is going to be in Round Rock?
Right. Wow. So to your point, and Hillwood is they are an amazing developer.
Amazing.
They're a well-built reputation, but you nailed it. Now they're opening their eyes. And that's what Ethan and I were talking about. Is I've got a development going down in San Marcos. For our listeners, if you can't tell, I am in Austin, Texas as well. But that is part of the concept. We're in development right now. Is we'll be doing a 600 plus price point, but as an added value, you have the option to add in an ADU or a tiny home for potential income, so you can offset the cost of the home.
Wow. I know we're getting in real time breaking news, so I'm going to do. I mean, would this former executive, is there a current name to this upcoming company that's going to be launched that maybe listeners can kind of keep a watchful eye out if they're in the Austin market?
Sure. I don't think he'll mind.
Okay.
Products.com is the name, is their website. And I know they are just on the verge of launching V2 for the site and adding in this additional information and product. So for our listeners, just be patient. They're fast and furious. I know that everyone wants it, yesterday. That's kind of where we're seeing the pent-up demand coming from. So yes.
And their name one more time?
Assembled Products.
Assembled Products.
Yeah.
for those that are listening, be on the lookout for assembled product. And kind of to circle back to your point too, I'm really happy. Some The city of Lockhart is near and dear to my heart. I used to teach down there, and over the last, I think it was previous lifetime, but I remember sitting in those school board meetings, sitting in the council meetings, and they talk, and they had plates, the eyes the size of plates, thinking about 7% growth, population growth year after year, and I I would see housing prices go up. Stuff that was in the 200s is now getting up to the 400s. I mean, we're talking about six houses built in the 60s, 70s. So to see life being brought out there, and it's a wonderful area. The San Marcos, Lockhart. I mean, that whole corridor between San Antonio and Austin is going to be blown. It's going to just blow up. And I mean, you're talking about great food, colleges, entertainment. You know,
When
it
and then the movie studios have broken,
that's
they're full go.
Well, and here's the thing. Before, in the past, those towns down there, like San Marcos, they're about to have a movie studio built out there. But down in those areas were very friendly to filming. That these are towns that would close up their centers and they would do that. And two movies that stuck out with me when I was teaching. One was The Mean Green, which was a Disney film, and I got to coach soccer. So both me and Steve Gutenberg, the main man of the 80s, we coached on the same field, which I'm very proud of. And then this horror movie called The Faculty. And it was in the same hallway I was teaching. So coming, after dropping the kids off from a soccer match and returning all the equipment, I'd be going down this scary hall, and all I could think about is I'm
Oh,
in a
no,
real
thank
life horror.
you.
So I know I'm going off topic here, but it's
So you're
no,
saying you're
I love
a secret
I
actor as well? That's kind of your second
no.
job?
If you can't see, I've got the face for radio.
Not true. Not true.
Well,
No,
I know let's get back, because I know the listeners don't want to hear me just rambling on. But if you do get a chance, for those that are listening, take a trip out to Lockhart. Greatest barbecue in the area. San Marcos has got great shopping, the river, more to come in that area. So I'm really glad to hear that there's development and especially attainability too. Um,
right. Great
and
point.
kind of back to that point, um, where do you see that there needs to be a further support and growth, as a viable solution? Is it going to take established communities like Hillwood to be the pioneers? Is it going to take kind of new studies? Do we have to hit rock bottom to realize I got nowhere else to go? I might as well go for this. Where do you see this, or some
There's
challenges or support to get this more up to
lots
speed?
going. You
Yeah,
know, I think you used the word earlier, forging the way. So right now, I think it's good for you and I, and then for our listeners, to give a snapshot of what's in process as far as boots on the ground. We've got a project right outside of Sacramento, with W&R Development, and that will provide 270 MH homes in the Oroville area, so a little suburb right out. Their wait list is already 500 long,
wow.
and that price point, for, as we all know, we know California pricing is always, you want to say that the big eyes, that's, I think any Texan that looks at California's prices goes, holy moly, and that explains why the migration to
Yeah,
Texas is so great. So that their price point is about 350 to 400, and you are on a 60-foot lot. You are in a 2,200 square foot plan with a garage, walking trails. Again, it's kind of that taking the Hillwood concept, and then how are these guys, these developers on the forefront, bringing it in. Where the work is still heavily in process is permitting. It is city councils, it is government, and making sure that not only can an MH product get through that process and get approved, but also on the financing. We're well above 7% for mortgage rates right now. A standard MH house is, well, I would say not all, about 90% right now, are closed with a chattel loan. That
really.
Thrive Mortgage, based out of Georgetown, Texas, is actually partnering with these manufactured home builders and the ADUs and the modular and Fannie. and really digging in on how do we move these projects to get approved for FHA financing. Well, it's been approved. It's now available. You can get a conventional mortgage on an MH house. So we're chipping away with permitting. We're bringing it into a standard new home construction buyer process where I can get the 30-year conventional loan. And then as the market is receiving this, our words are different. Our product is different. So it's already going. Moab, Utah group out there, great group of guys. They've got a massive project about to launch. And I believe, don't quote me, I want to say they're around 250 MH houses. I've got one in Bozeman, Montana. They are already selling. They are selling, pardon the term, but like hotcakes. And then we've got, that's three of the biggest. And then right outside of Denver, there's another one. And I believe this project at build out will be upwards of 5,000 units, but this developer is mixing together traditional stick-built homes, multifamily, and manufactured. And they're well underway in sales as well. So you've got the pockets already coming out. It's just has that news spread, to your point, Aaron. And are the listeners, are the consumers, are we getting this to them so they can go look, because plant the seeds, multiple markets, now get the PR up, and then they will come.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's wonderful, because I know definitely it's, when you think of manufactured homes, the first thing you're going to think about is, it's a trailer park, similar to Johnson City. So, how do we overcome that perception, that old adage of perception versus reality? Because I see some of these modular homes and even the tiny homes, and they're just, 5-star in their construction, the technology, the amenities that they have there. And what's really great too is you're taking the development model of, and what you spoke to about the gardening, the auditorium, the walking trails. These are staples, and we've talked about these in previous shows, where those are amenities that are highly sought after. And wellness is not just exclusive to the retirees that are looking after their health in their golden age, or the young tree hugging, nut eaters. They're not the only ones. So we're seeing a real cross section, and I think it'll be really interesting to see this cross section even come to the manufactured home and the tiny home communities as well.
Yeah, and even to kind of throw a hook in here for us and for the listeners, I believe it was 2 years ago, and we designed and built a couple prototypes. Actually, they weren't even prototypes. We sold them before they were even completed. But Rocking J Ranch, which is kind of out Dripping Springs area, the homes were built with living walls for hydroponics, so that could be done indoors. And the home, there were 3 of them. They also had, and you tapped into this, Aaron, when you talked about the hippy dippy, because in them, they also had grounding rooms. We built grounding rooms and hydroponic walls. So the buyers who bought those were not the young hippies. They were the 50 plus crowd who, by this point in my life, I'm super aware of my health. I'm not 50, if we can tell everyone that, but I'm super aware of my health. But I'm also, as a consumer, so aware because of the wonderful job home builders have done. And is this home healthy? Does this home live healthy? And so those two worlds are kind of combining, where we're seeing it in traditional single family homes. We're seeing manufactured now bringing this in. Tiny homes obviously taps into that because your carbon footprint, right? And so it's all, how I look at it is, as we're talking, it's funny, I can now look back 4 years to today, having the conversation with you and the great questions, and go, wow, 4 years has been massive progress from, this on 35 in Texas, having the trailers sold to, we don't go on the side of a road to buy these anymore. We walk into a traditional community, we walk a model home, and oh my goodness, wait, this house is manufactured? Why, yes, it is. Yeah. So it's really, everything has to happen almost simultaneously. And then as that movement starts going up, what we're seeing, like Bozeman and like Moab, is the word is spreading as it should from buyer to buyer. Like we can inundate them with this and we can, spread the word, but ideally we want you and I at a dinner
Yeah,
table having this conversation and then demanding it from our builders. And
yeah.
that's when the change comes.
It starts with a conversation for sure.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, as we're kind of rounding towards the end, Natalie, as love your perspective, your expertise in the industry over the last 2 decades. We're here getting towards the end of 2024. Any advice you would have for professionals listening about the residential home industry, and what do you expect, or what are your predictions going into 2024?
If you come to IBS, you'll see something that has never hit the real estate market on the technology side. And it kind of, to your question, Aaron, are we providing the capability for our buyers? So when COVID hit, the home building industry kind of went bananas and said, oh my gosh, we have to do this virtually. We're behind the game, even though the car industry and the apartment industry had been doing this for a decade.
Yeah.
We were sitting back going, oh my gosh, virtual tours. Wait, they have to be able to see and feel and touch the home, but they have to be able to buy the home without being able to come to the model. So really the industry as a whole just propelled forward. Now we're in that rest phase where we're going to see the next climb, and the next climb is, am I able to walk that home in my avatar? Am I able to smell the scents? Am I able to turn the oven on? Am I able to walk outside? And am I tapped in that the weather is, in my experience, real time for that zip code in that community? So it's almost like, think the metaverse. Everybody loves to
Yeah.
talk about that, right? We're bringing that into home building. It's been built. It's going to be previewed at IVS. So that is one of the most
Okay.
coming into 2024. I
And,
am
I, and I,
extremely.
I'm a tech geek, so this excites me. Augmented reality, VR. I think it's
Correct.
going to
And
really
all with
change
like
the
Unreal
buyer
Engine.
journey on
Yes.
the Unreal Engine too. Yeah, I mean, you got something that's been the staple in the video game industry for 30
Yes.
plus years.
Yeah. And KB Homes, they took a pretty healthy jump into that, and they launched, I want to say it was about 6 or 8 months ago, they launched their first gamification experience. So we saw the first iteration come out. What you're going to see is pretty mind-blowing. I had to go down to Florida, and I sat in this contraption machine that I was surrounded by thousands of cameras. And what they did was, they were doing all my photo. I got to watch as that lifted into the computer and built my avatar down to my facial movements, and then how that taps into chat GPT, and now my voice comes through. So it is insane, like insane and next level for our industry on every product type, not just one or the other.
Question is, are we going to have a point to where we buy a house that's in the physical world, and then we also get a virtual version of it too?
That might be coming as well.
Okay, just throwing those ideas out there.
Yeah. And then one thing I do want to, Aaron, it just because I know both internally in our industry and then as a home buyer, there's a whole lot of friction right now with the mortgage rates. Builders are up against building a product, in their defense, that is attainable, and with trades, with labor, with permitting, with, it's this perfect storm with the mortgage rates where they've really had to do a lot of work. So I have several clients here in Austin where we had to go in, audit the current offer, bring things out of the home, condense the lot size, but then are we really hitting the market and what the market wants?
No, yeah, are we settling? Are we do you feel it's prudent that we're giving up the standard 150-foot lot size for attainability?
I think both can be accomplished without one or the other being given up. And I think that proof of concept is sitting out in Lockhart, Texas. So if you want to see it,
Go
and then
see it.
tiny homes and a manufactured home. right? So, and even single family. So we're really trying to accomplish that in San Marcos is, can we give you that luxury single home? And then can we give you the tiny home experience and put that on a traditional lot size? So we're going to see a lot of that come out, but to the, mortgage rates, what the builders are facing as we go into 2024, based on the numbers I've seen, the conversations I'm having, it's getting better, and I believe we're going to see a much better 2024. It's also localized, as we know. You look at Texas, I believe Austin specifically has a magic bubble over it. We made it through the '08 crash.
Yeah.
We're here now, and I'm seeing most builders in the area, whether they're a client or through Smart Touch or with HBAs, they're hitting, for the most part, their sales goals. We're just taking a little bit of a hit on what we thought we could get for the homes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems about in line with what I would see as well.
Yeah. So,
Now, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted.
no, just to wrap that up. So I think what we're going to see, and the projections coming out, is we're going to see a little bit higher sales pace. We're hopefully, I can't ever, I know, when we were talking with Fanny a couple of weeks ago, we never quote rates, but based on the projections, hopefully we'll get those a little bit lower. And then with the caveat, we have to understand our parents bought homes with an 18% mortgage interest rate, and they didn't blink an eye.
Yeah, I mean, we're historically, I mean, if you were in the housing market from the '80s, all you're used to is a downward slope. So you got to have that bounce back up. And historically, if you look at over the last, was it 20th century, it's been around 9, 11%.
Exactly. Right.
So
Spot on.
yeah, um, I appreciate it. I absolutely, for the listeners that are here, if we talked on manufactured module and tiny homes. If anyone's interested in kind of looking into this product or seeing what's cutting edge, where could they go? What are some resources that you would recommend for the listeners to go and do their own research?
Hands down, genesishomes.com. And what you'll see on that is you'll see a video of the Lockhart, Texas project. So the proof of concept, you'll see the latest project or product that's come out and is offered to the market right now. But why I love how, and Genesis Homes is a sister or parent company of Skyline Champion. What they built is walking through, how does this look? What does it mean that my home is built in a planet? You get to actually be immersed in that. You get to understand how it is, and then you get to identify areas in which you can either purchase and build on your own lot, or hey, where are their projects being offered? And then there is a resource page taking them through that. If they want to verify and check us on those hurricane force winds, that will be there. Information from Fanny May will also be available, or they can call you, Aaron.
Yeah, listen, if anybody's listening and they want to take a tour of some of Lockhart's best barbecue, I'll be there in a heartbeat, whether it's Blacks or Chisholm Trail. Like, again, I can't speak highly enough of the barbecue down there. I'm a fat kid at heart, so you got to keep me away from that area. Well, Nelly, thank you again for spending the time, and for those that are listening, thank you again. Hopefully, you picked up some value and education on the manufacturing home industry and the growing trends that we see coming into 2024. So, Natalie, thank you again.
Thank you.
And for those that are listening, we'll see you next time.